So today I'd like to take some time to show how to use a diagram to solve a problem. So the problem is called ducks and cows, and in this problem Farmer Brown has ducks and cows, and one day he noticed that the animals had a total of 12 heads and 32 feet. And the question is, how many animals were ducks and how many were cows? So we're trying to figure out, of the 12 animals, how many of them are cows and how many are ducks. We know there's a total of 32 feet in the group of ducks and cows. We know there's 12 total, but we don't know how many of each there are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a illustrative or diagrammatic way of solving a problem as opposed to just trying to do calculations. And to do this, I'm going to use sort of this format. So the idea is I know that I have ducks and cows. I know there's 12 total animals in the group. And so what I'm going to do is I'm not actually going to draw ducks and cows. I'm just going to remind myself that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 animals. So these lines are simply going to represent the idea that there's 12 animals or 12 things in this problem. And we know some of them are ducks and some of them are cows. I also know that ducks have 2 legs and cows have 4 legs, and so I'm going to actually start with the animals with the fewer legs. And I'm just going to assume that all of these lines, which are animals, would be 2-legged animals, or ducks in this case. So if they were all ducks, every one of them, I'm just going to start giving them legs or feet. And so if all 12 animals were ducks, it would be kind of like that. So 12 ducks. The problem is, in the problem it says I have 32 feet to use up, and right now I've used up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24 of the 32 legs. So there were 32 legs altogether. I've only used 24. So that means I still have 8 legs to use, or 8 feet that have not been used up. If they were all ducks, it would only use up 24 of the 32 feet. And so now I know I need to use up 8 more legs. So I'm going to change some of the 2-legged animals into 4-legged animals and use up those other 8 legs that I haven't used up. So I'll just go ahead and add 2 legs here. So I got a cow. Let's use up 2 of them. Another 2. There's 4, 6, and 8. And so now I've actually used up all the legs. I have 12 animals. Some of them have 4 legs, some of them have 2, which means that these ones, these are my, okay, I know they don't look like cows, but just trying to give a little, there's cows, and down here are ducks. So my ducks. So now you can see that simply by using a diagram in this problem, I identified that there are 4 cows, and those 4 cows, 16 feet or legs in this case, and then the rest of them down here are my 8 ducks. And those 8 ducks also comprise a total of 16 feet or legs. And together I have all 12 animals, ducks and cows. And together I have 32 feet altogether. And simply by using a diagram, drawing kind of a sketch, rough sketch, I can use that diagram to show the context of this problem and really literally solve it with that in mind. Now, that's the first step in using diagrams to solve problems, because we don't just want to have the diagram, but we also want to be able to show the mathematics behind it so that we have support for our solution. And in this case, we wanted to know how many ducks and cows there were, so we have the 4 cows and the 8 ducks. And so now we want to have the mathematical solution, or be able to show the calculations that we use to support our answer here. So again, we said there were 4 cows plus the 8 ducks, and that equals our 12 animals. So we wanted to have that. We also know for the cows, 4 cows times 4 feet on each cow equals 16 feet for the cows. These are cows' feet now. So again, we're just now using the mathematics to show it mathematically. We did it with an illustration on the front. Now we're using this to show the math. And we had 8 ducks, and each of the ducks has 2 feet. And then it gives me another 16 feet for the ducks. And so then to finally prove that we have the right number of feet, I have 16 feet that belong to the cows, and plus another 16 feet that belong to the ducks, which give me the 32 feet that belong to all of the animals in this problem. And so now I have the mathematics behind the numerical representation of the problem, simply with numbers. You don't actually have the cows and ducks drawn out. But I started with the diagram to get the solution. Now I'm using the math to support the diagram. And finally, what I want to be able to do is go back now and basically give instructions, like how did we do this? Because if you just looked at the diagram and say, well, how did you know there were 4 cows and there were 8 ducks? And so without explanation, the diagram alone by itself doesn't explain how I got this answer. So I'm going to go to now written explanation. So, and I'm going to use this format of first, then, and finally. And there may be multiple thens in the middle because I might take extra steps. But the idea is that I should be able to describe the process that I used to solve this problem. And this is what I did. First, make 12 lines to represent 12 animals. If you remember just a few minutes ago, that's what I did. I just drew 12 lines on the paper, and I just said those are my 12 animals. And then next, then give each animal 2 legs, so they are all ducks. So I'm starting out with this idea that I'm just going to start with all ducks. Ducks have 2 legs, but I know that didn't use up all the legs. So the next thing I'm going to do is then use up the rest of the legs and change ducks into cows. Until all 32 legs are used. So now I've used up all the legs. This is exactly the process I just went through on the other side in the drawing the diagram of this problem. My last step, so it's finally, so I had a first, then, and now finally. count how many animals are cows and how many are ducks. And you will get 4 cows and 8 ducks. And there we have it. So we have our solution. The question asked how many are cows and how many are ducks. And so now we have the answer. You get 4 cows and 8 ducks. And really this is the process to get that solution. Using a diagram to represent the problem, so really the idea is we're going to start with the whole context idea, that we're going to look at the problem in context of cows and ducks and the legs on the cows and the legs on the ducks. Instead of trying to solve this mathematically, we're going to use the diagram as the basis for a solution, then go to the mathematics piece of it to support what we did in a diagram, and then go back and make sure we explain actually step by step what we did first, then, and finally to get to our solution. Because just looking at the diagram alone, someone wouldn't necessarily know that this is what we did. So that's why we need the words to go with the math. Because someone could look at the math and say, well, how did you know there were 4 cows and 8 ducks? And so going back to the diagram, you could look at that and say, how did you know that there were 4 cows and 8 ducks? And so by going to the words, this last piece, we get actually that piece we need to explain how we actually came up with a solution. And so now we have solved a problem really literally using a diagram.